injured as a result of other people's negligence for over 50 years here in South Florida. If you get injured as a result of somebody else's negligence, it can be a car accident, it can be a slip and fall, medical malpractice, negligent security. If somebody else's negligence caused an injury to either you or one of your loved ones, give us a call. Our phone number is on our page, our website is on our page, and our email addresses are on our page. Please give us a call for a free consultation. We'd love to help you. Let Zach and I protect your rights.
I feel like 2024 is going to be magical.
Hello and welcome to this edition of FOF Live, presented by Burger and Hicks. As always, you can check out Burger and Hicks on their website and on their social medias. We'll have their number and all the details below for you to give them a call. And as always, we are here today with Mr. Eli Sussman. We have Alex Carver, with Alex Patrick joining us midway through for our box report as we are previewing the series versus the Marlins and the Cleveland Guardians. No, he will not be in uniform to my right there, but a lot of things to talk about the last couple of days coming up with the series against the Guardians. Let's go and talk about the Citrus series. The Marlins fall once again to their cross-state rival, the Tampa Bay Rays, and now fall 3-23 in their last 6 series against Tampa Bay. Eli, what went wrong this series?
It was starting pitching. When you have Luzardo and Braxton both lay eggs back to back, it wasn't that simple because Luzardo looked really sharp the first time through the lineup. He went 3 scoreless innings, and then the wheels fell off. But you combine them, it was 14 runs, all of them earned in 7 innings pitched. So you can't overcome that. At least this team can't overcome that. They kind of had, actually, I put the games backwards on here. I think that first one, Braxton one was the second game, and the Luzardo one was the first game. Either way, you get the idea. So that second game, the Braxton game, was the one that they at least had a chance late. It was a 2-run game in the 6th and the 7th and the 8th and the 9th. They had the tying run at the plate at one time. They brought Emmanuel Rivera off the bench as a pinch hitter, as representing the potential tying run in that game. That was not a popular decision among some folks. Ultimately, when you're starting pitching struggles that much, you don't have much of a chance. But the bullpen was as good as you could possibly hope for in order to give them sort of a shot to come back in those games. That's why it was a safe situation both times for Pete Fairbanks. At least it was mildly competitive. Ultimately, we've come to expect, especially over the last month, this rotation has been a lot better than that. That's usually the case where even when they lose, it's closer than this is. As you pointed out, though, this is just continues a trend where every single year, almost every single game over the last 6 years, the Rays find a way to beat the Marlins. They've only lost 3 times over the last 6 years combined head-to-head. So they sweep these 2, and they're just 1 win away from once again winning the season series against the Marlins, as they've done in 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023. It is one of the crazier, more lopsided head-to-head matchups in all of baseball over that span.
Alex, tell us a little bit with these 2 teams, maybe what you saw again in this series. I mean, why are the Marlins so differential maybe to the Rays? Why is the separation so large between these 2 franchises in recent years?
Well, I mean, it comes down to just mindset and player development, where the Rays are willing to cut bait pretty quickly and the Marlins are not, and they hold on to players for a very long time before they're willing to say, okay, enough's enough. The Rays don't do that. The Rays are willing to say that a player hasn't worked out when they have enough of a sample size to say so, and the Marlins really aren't a team that has done that. The Avi Garcia DFA, maybe that's the start of a new way of thinking, or the Rays way of thinking for Bendix. And then with Sixto Sanchez as well, it's another one as well that the Marlins have held on to forever, and now they say it's enough. So maybe they're starting to think the same way as the Rays in terms of when to say that enough is enough and we need to go to somebody else. In this series, on top of starting pitching, which Eli mentioned, I was kind of surprised about a little bit of the usage on the pitching side. I really didn't understand Skip's usage of Declan Cronin. I mentioned that a couple of times. He literally went to him. He says that he's one of the most trusted guys in the bullpen, and then he's using mop-up pretty much 2 times. I don't understand that usage. Maybe we can ask about that. You go to your one of your most trusted guys in mop-up twice, once for 0.2 innings and then another time for 1.1 when the game's well out of reach and you're just putting innings on an arm that probably don't need to be there. So I didn't really understand that. But yeah, when you get in those holes that the starting pitching put them in, regardless of the bullpen, it's going to be a bad time. So hopefully this is, like I said, the new way of thinking that the Marlins are coming into with, hey, we're going to be able to recognize when a guy just isn't working, and that'll lead them to more success in the future.
Yeah, and with Luzardo, for both of y'all, is it time to worry about Luzardo? Because his velocity was down a bit throughout that game. Could be loss of confidence. Only 2 strikeouts, walked twice. It seems like every start he's maybe giving up a home run. With Luzardo, is it time to worry about him? I know he's been a constant name for trades for the Marlins, and now it seems like his value is just going lower and lower and lower.
Yeah, it's a fascinating one because since coming off the IL, his velo has been down about a tick compared to where it usually is, and that even when he's had success, which makes it not quite as concerning to me, is that he's able to be successful with it. His secondary pitches can be elite at times to put batters away. But this is also the second straight start where he didn't get a single whiff on his 4-seam fastball as well. So it's one thing to say, well, the velo is down. You might not be 100%, but ultimately it's about, is that pitch still effective for you? And it just hasn't been effective for him the last couple of times. So that is, it's something to monitor. I wouldn't say worry. It's an adjustment that he definitely has to make. And during the stretch, they have had this abundance of off days, which I don't want to go on a tangent, but maybe that's the reason why Declan Cronin pitched a couple of times in weird spots, because they had like 3 off days in the span of a single week. So if you don't use them, then you just don't get any reps. And those reps are useful, especially if you're auditioning a guy for a potential trade. So that's another factor with it. It just means that Luzardo has a little bit of extra time before he makes his next start. Maybe that extra rest gives him a chance to feel really 100% and get that velo back, or simply gives him more time to make some sort of a little tweak in order for his fastball to play better. I think it is just a matter of fact, though, that if you have a 5.30 ERA this far into the season, then his value is not what it was during the offseason when the team was very obviously listening to offers for him. So if you are concerned about what the Marlins could get in return for a guy that they need to get a lot in return from in order to stabilize their future, then yeah, it's worth monitoring, but I'm not at the level of panic yet.
Yeah.
I think the main issue with Jesus.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I was just going to ask you more about Luzardo. Yeah, go. You're good.
Yeah, so I was going to say, I mean, still not really worried about fastball velocity. Yeah, it was kind of a little bit down, but I mean, he's still like 73rd percentile on fastball velocity on the season. Whiffs as well. Not really too terribly worried. It's been a couple off starts, but Luzardo's been that guy that's up and down. You know, it's always been a pitcher that is, hot and then cold. So I mean, you catch him on a hot streak, you're not going to be able to hit him. If you catch him on a cold streak, he's going to get hit really hard. But I think the main concern for Luzardo is just his ability to keep the ball on the ground when he doesn't have his best stuff. When he doesn't have his best stuff, he gets hit really, really hard. So if you look at his barrel rate, if you look at his hard hit rate, if you look at his ground ball rate, it'll prove it. All of those on Baseball Savant are well into the blue. So when he is not placing his pitches well and when he doesn't have all of his velo, he gets hit really, really, really hard. And that's what limits him. So I think he needs to command the lower half of the zone a lot better. I think he needs to keep the ball on the ground a lot better. And when he doesn't have his best stuff, when he has his best stuff, he's great. But when he doesn't have his best stuff, he's not very good. So he's a guy that needs to learn how to pitch and be effective and still be effective when he doesn't have his best stuff. So that's the main issue with Luzardo. I think coming by more command of the lower half of the strike zone will really benefit him. Because, I mean, you can't elevate all the time, especially when you don't have your best. He elevates really well when he has his best, but when he doesn't have his best and he still tries to do it, he gets hit really hard because pitches land like well in the center of the strike zone and he gets hit really, really hard. So that's the issue with Luzardo. Needs to learn how to command the lower half of the strike zone a lot better.
Yeah, and with Luzardo, you mentioned another starter, Eli. We have Braxton Garrett. We can go a bit into him. Seems like just another blow up, just back to back Marlins pitchers, and Brax even went less than what Luzardo did, only going 2 in the third innings, 5 earned runs. We saw Brax have a complete game shutout to now he's barely getting out of second inning. Just what went wrong with Braxton out of the third inning? Excuse me. What went wrong with Braxton? Is this another thing to worry about? Could it be an injury? Just what happened to Brax? Maybe the overall for these two pitchers just having blow-ups back to back.
Yeah, as Sean Millerick brings up in the chat, both of these guys, big Florida Panthers fans. They may be a bit preoccupied with the Stanley Cup run. It's final start tomorrow, I think. Game 1 that.
Yes.
Anyway, with Braxton in particular, he looked off from the very start of that game. That's what made it a lot different than Luzardo's. From the very first inning, he was getting hit relatively hard, and he's somebody that his command needs to be super precise to be successful. And what has made him such a bright spot is that his command has been some of the best in the majors over the last couple of years. So it wasn't there for him in that matchup. Also, he wasn't helped by some defense. Like both Nick Gordon and Jesus Sanchez made really awkward defensive plays in the first inning, even though there wasn't an error attached to it. It allowed the guys to get extra bases that they probably shouldn't have had. It just added a little more stress to the situation. So with him, he was just more simply bad. It's a more simple situation where he just didn't have his good stuff and his good command the way that he should. But yeah, not overly concerned with him, and not as much pressure on him because he is still a couple of years further back when it comes to his service time. So he's not somebody that I think the Marlins are feeling that much pressure to trade right now. He's not under the same microscope that Luzardo is. So yeah, with him, I'm willing to just dismiss that for a guy that also had a more lengthy injury that kept him out to start the season with his shoulder compared to Luzardo's, which was more of just a really tiny scare. Yeah, I'm not going to read too much into it.
Yeah, and someone that we could go on the hitting side, we could talk a little bit about Josh Bell, who just had a monster series against Tampa Bay with 5 hits, a double, a triple, did not strike out this series. Again, this could also be a potential player that the Marlins might trade just in terms of just how well he's been hitting. Alex, with Josh Bell, 5 hits, is this the offensive maybe mark that the Marlins can use going forward, or is just maybe him auditioning for other teams?
I still don't think it's going to be that possible to trade this player with what he's owed and everything like that. I don't really think it's going to be very possible to trade him. If he continues his hot streak and the Marlins can keep him on the pace that he's going right now, then maybe the Marlins can kind of dangle him in front of some other teams. I mean, it's a 31-year-old player. He doesn't have that much of a future with the Marlins. He's a free agent in 2025. So it's a player that the Marlins would definitely like to trade and get some future value for. I just really with his overall, historical past of just being, at least recent past of being so streaky, I really don't think that it's going to be that possible to trade Josh Bell with what's going on with him. That being said, what I would say is that this was a good series for him. What I would also say is that this player doesn't walk literally very much at all. To see him get the strikeout rate more in check is good. But man, he's just such a physical swing, right? It's just so much into it that it's going to be a player that is, for the rest of his career at least, that is going to be very, very, very streaky, I think, for the rest of the time that he's in this league. And he doesn't really do that much on defense. So everything together, I don't know. I would say if he keeps on this current trajectory that we saw last series, then maybe the Marlins could try to trade him, but I don't think it's going to be possible, honestly. I think the Marlins are going to be with him until he's a free agent again.
And for you, Eli, with Josh Bell, is it the same sentiment, or maybe you're more optimistic in terms of him potentially being moved, or maybe him staying with the Marlins on this course right now? I believe he has an 8-game hit streak going.
I'm a little more optimistic just because gotta give Bruce Sherman, that he was willing to eat as much money as he could with Luis Ariz to get the best trade return. And so with Bell, I don't think the money is going to be an obstacle. If some team wants him, the Marlins would be, in my opinion, willing to eat that money. They've even showed it in previous years to get Luzardo in the first place. I don't know if people remember this. The Marlins paid the rest of Starling Marte's salary that year at the deadline in order to be able to convince the A's to give up Luzardo in return. So there is some precedent in recent years of the Marlins doing this. That's the money they've already invested for the season. Looking towards the future, they know that they really can't skimp on the opportunity to get anything for these guys, just given how much help their farm system continues to need. So yeah, I think it's possible. What's missing is he's still not hitting the ball over the fence very often at all. He only has 6 homers pretty deep into this year while playing every single day. As massive as he is, it's translating to a lot of singles and occasional doubles. And he had a triple in this series, or either, it was very recent. He had a triple out of all things.
Yeah, Tampa. Yeah, it was a Tampa one.
As a first base DH, you need to hit home runs at a more of a frequency than he does. Otherwise, contending teams aren't going to see him as a big upgrade. So that's the main thing to watch with him. I know people are excited about all the hits he's getting. He's hitting way above 300 since the start of May. That's great. Ultimately, there's not going to be a huge market unless he's hitting it over the fence more consistently, and he still has to show that again.
Yeah, and we can end this Rays discussion on some news that came out today. Really going to hurt Eli. He might have to cover his ears for this. And Harold Ramirez being DFA, designated for assignment after back-to-back, I would say, pretty solid years with the Rays. Struggled a bit so far to start this season, but being DFA'd, obviously, I wouldn't put him as one of the worst players, compared to him and Avi in terms of guys who were DFA'd. I think you can't really compare them. I think Harold's the better player, but maybe defensively, Eli, this is your guy. Harold Ramirez, him getting DFA'd. Were you a little shocked by this? And maybe where do you see him potentially being moved? And could we see a return home?
Well, as you said, it's a hilarious juxtaposition that the Marlins DFA Avi Garcia way too late, and the Rays DFA Harold. Like, this is the kind of caliber of player that even the Rays feel is not quite good enough for them. And it's a totally different standard that they have. But with him, to be honest, he's been hitting kind of like Avi this year. He's had a really bad year. He went only 1 for 8 in this series when a bunch of other guys in that Rays lineup went off, even against lefties. So I don't know. I don't want to read too much into how much those couple games may have weighed into the decision, but he is there to crush lefties, and he has not been doing it this year, despite having done so at a really high level the previous couple of years. Overall, I've been very proud of the way his career has progressed since Marlins let him go. He was a really great platoon player for the Rays the last couple of years as a DH, occasional first baseman, occasional corner outfielder. And with the Marlins, I mean, I guess there's a theoretical fit because he's not even a pending free agent. He still has 1 year of club control after this coming up. That's notable, and that's something that I think the Marlins would value. But he is still owed quite a bit of money the rest of this year by Marlins standards. He's owed like $2.5 million. And I don't think we had this conversation, I think, when Garrett Cooper was DFA'd by the Cubs about, it couldn't hurt for to plug him in to this lineup somewhere. But even he was owed more than the minimum. They're not going to invest more money on this team for the rest of this year, even if it makes sense and even if it's somewhat of an upgrade for them. So to me, like, he would be somebody that is an improvement over Emmanuel Rivera, for example. I think he's a guy that would make more sense for those late game pinch hitting opportunities against lefties. But ultimately, the money is going to get in the way when it comes to him. And if he becomes a free agent, if he clears waivers because nobody wants to pay him $2.5 million for the rest of this year, I think he would have a lot of preferred destinations over the Marlins, with all due respect.
Yeah. And before we get into our press box report, we could talk about the big news that also came from the Marlins, and that is Xavier Edwards being called up for the first time this season after just mashing in AAA, coming off the foot injury. Alex, tell us about the results we've seen from Xavier Edwards in AAA, and if he can replicate what he did late season with the Marlins now.
Yeah, 0 left to prove in AAA. This guy would have been with the Marlins out of spring training most likely if he didn't get injured and have his foot infection or whatever he was dealing with. I'm glad to see that he is over it. It did take a while for him to get over it, but he is over it, and he's ready to be back. He may have been back a little bit sooner, but Otto Lopez was just like, he got called up and he was really just doing it and taking up a roster spot, and you couldn't send him down. But yeah, with him out for a little while and then Anderson going to bereavement, I think, yeah, that's and congratulations to Otto, by the way, who goes to the paternity list. So yeah, it creates an opportunity for Edwards that he definitely has earned. I think it'll be interesting if he comes up and performs, Daniel. I think it'll be interesting to see what they do when both Anderson and Otto are ready to come back, because there's only so many roster spots on this team, right? So yeah, that was it was definitely a good opportunity for him. He deserves to be here. Hits from both sides of the plate, walks really well. The only thing I would say is that he's playing shortstop tonight. I don't really think he's a shortstop. I know he plays a lot of positions. I don't think he's a long-term shortstop. I think he's more of a second baseman, but he can at least fake it at shortstop and do it. So it's a great opportunity for Edwards. I'm glad that he is back. I'm glad that he is here. He earned it out of spring training. He was going to be on this team out of spring training if not for his injury. So I'm glad to see that he is healthy, ready to be back, and ready to go. So it's cool to see him on the Marlins. And again, like I said, it's going to be interesting if he comes up and performs like when Anderson and Otto are ready to come back. It'll be interesting to see what the decision is there.
Yeah. What I'll say about that, those guys, both of them, it's only a very short absence with so sending out our best to Tim Anderson with his bereavement situation. In fact, and Christian Bethencourt went on the list just last week as well. So really tough run of luck for this roster as a whole when it comes to that. And with Otto, in both those situations, it's only generally about 3 days that those guys miss before they'll come back at that point. So it's a very short-term thing. And if you look at the roster, just to remind people, if this was only going to be for sure a short-term call-up for Edwards, I think they would have gone with Jonah Bride here because that's who they used early in the season when John Birdie was traded and at last moments. That's who they used in the aftermath of Arise getting traded. He had a very short stint after that. In this case, if it was definitely going to be only a few days, I think Bride would have been the guy. And so that gives me some hope that this Edwards call-up might actually have a chance to stick around a little bit. I share Carver's reluctance to have him at shortstop on a regular basis. He makes the routine plays. The arm strength is still a pretty big issue when it comes to that. The ball just does not get to the base fast enough. And there are going to be outs that you leave on the table. What you give him credit for is that he hasn't made any errors this year. So even when his throws come up short, or even when they don't get there quick enough, he's not missing badly enough in order to allow for too many extra bases or egregious errors right there. I think he's better at faking it than he was at this time a year ago. Remember last year, he did not play a single inning at shortstop in the majors for the Marlins. So that shows you how their view of him has changed a little bit, that they're willing to at least put him in that situation, at least for this first night right here. So yeah, so we'll let it play out and see how things go in terms of whether he actually sticks around beyond these few days. We showed the stats right there. He won the International League batting title last year. He was on pace to repeat. It's very uncommon, I think, to guys to repeat as AAA batting title winners. So, and there's a reason for that, because when you perform that well at AAA, you usually get especially when you're somebody that's still just 24 years old. This is somebody that he should get an opportunity at the highest level, especially for this team that needs offense anyway, that it could get it. And so for now, there's that void at shortstop that he can fill. And I will be curious to see exactly how they handle things on the road trip when presumably both Tim Anderson and Otto will come back. But we'll see.
All right, I think it's now the perfect time to head into our press box report with Mr. Kevin Barral to talk to us a little bit what he's saying between the Guardians and the Marlins, and a little familiar face starting for the Guardians tonight for you FIU folks. So we'll bring in Mr. Kevin. Kevin.
What's up, guys?
What's up? Well, what are you seeing? What you heard? Tell us a little outlook before we ask some questions.
Yeah, not much, to be honest. Obviously, Eli mentioned that you guys already kind of opened with it. Xavier Edwards is here. He's going to lead off for the Marlins probably the next couple days, as well as play shortstop the next couple days. And they're very excited to see what they've got in this guy. I mean, I think Eli kind of mentioned it. Feels like maybe this is more of a long-term call. It kind of it kind of sounded like that from Skip and from himself, Xavier Edwards himself, that, they believe this is going to be a long-term thing. They want to see him at shortstop. They believe he is a shortstop. Seemed like there was some, obviously some conflicting, views early on when we saw Skip in the winter meetings mentioned he'll get an opportunity at center field. That's in the book. Obviously, that hasn't been the case. It's been a rough go for Edwards with the injury. But Peter Bendix did say that he would be playing shortstop every opportunity he would get. This is a shot right now. Has some time to do it. We'll see, how successful he is, because this is the first time he will do it at the major league level. You guys had mentioned it. Tristan Gray is also here. Honestly, it'll just be a couple days. Maybe he won't even play, to be honest with you. Maybe a late game sub guy, but he's here. Good for him. They have the options for it. They have the spot for him to do it. So should be a good opportunity for him. And Logan Allen's on the mound. That'll be pretty fun to watch. After former FIU guy struggled a lot this season, but if he has an opportunity to get it going tonight, it's tonight against the Marlins, and that was the team he debuted against. So yeah, cool opportunity for him and to pitch for in front of his hometown team.
Yeah, I meant to play this earlier. A quick clip from Edwards in the clubhouse talking about playing shortstop regularly after being mainly at second base last season. So take a listen to this.
You mentioned the footwork. What else is maybe the biggest transition for you moving on the other side of the diamond?
Honestly, just finding my footing again. I got drafted as a shortstop. I love playing shortstop. I just kind of got away from it for a long time because the teams I was with prior kind of got me off the position a bit. I'm excited to be back over there. It's been my original home when I started playing baseball, so I'm excited to be back. I've put in a lot of time in my arm strength just to build my shoulder back up because I had an injury a few years ago, so build my shoulder back up and that kind of thing. But I feel good. I feel like I'm moving well. I'm making a lot of different kinds of plays, so I'm excited.
So that full video is up on our site and on our YouTube channel. If you haven't seen it already, it's about 4+ minutes of him talking about that kind of stuff. Anything from the injury report that you want to bring our attention to, Kevin?
It's crazy how long this rehab assignment has been for JT Shagwell. I mean,
Yeah.
It feels like every series we want him back. Skip said most likely, he's basically checked almost every box. So I would assume he's going to travel with the team in New York. I believe that's where they head first, and then Washington, or vice versa. But he will be on the road trip most likely, if I had to assume. Edward threw a bullpen there. Hoeing another live BP. I think this is the second one, or this is the first one. We heard that he would do one this week, and then 6-0, he's here. So yeah, nothing too crazy. I think this is the one that stands out as Shagwell and how long of a rehab assignment this has been for a reliever. I guess they just wanted to build back up as much as they can. So make sure there's no setbacks. He's had a couple already. So yeah, I guess that'll be the case.
Yeah, well, let me put the stats up really quickly on Shagwell because it made me look like an idiot. I thought that when he pitched back-to-back days, the last 2 days, that's it. He's ready. It's 8 innings. It's 1 hit in 8 innings and no runs and 10 Ks in 7 appearances. And yeah, still I agree with Kevin now. Yeah, I agree that this will probably be the very last one. They'll get him up to 10 rehab innings over 8 appearances over like 2.5 weeks. That should be it, and that would be his season debut.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only other thing to note before, is how good Cleveland's bullpen is. They've given up 1 earned run in the last 27 innings. They're the best bullpen in terms of Fangraphs WAR. Their rotation has just been not good at all. I mean, the Marlins are down there in that rotation, but Cleveland's right now 28th in baseball in F4, so they're towards the bottom end. They're looking to make a push. This is the ideal team that you would like to trade with. You have Jesus Luzardo, who's here, Weathers, Braxton Garrett, all those type of players. So I think Cleveland would love to have those guys. And, you have a struggling Carlos Carrasco. Logan Allen struggled. And then you have, I believe, a couple injuries. Shane Bieber went down for the year. So that's definitely something to look at if you're the Guardians. And this is a good, I guess, tryout for some of these pitchers that will a good audition for some of these guys. So, yeah, definitely an interesting team. Jose Ramirez has been on fire, 1,000 OPS in the month of May. This is a fun squad. Stephen Kwan back, former Marlins prospect Josh Naylor as well in town. So with his brother Bo, who's been their catcher. So it's a fun squad. Best team in the American League Central right now, and they really need to win these games if they want to keep pace. To finish first and win that division.
Yeah, the Guardians should have a bright
rate. Third highest bullpen strikeout rate for Cleveland in baseball, and the 7th lowest bullpen ERA. They've been great, really good.
Yeah, they need to take advantage of the starting pitching. Marlins offense at least. Former Guardian Josh Bell, so he'll have a chance to face his former team. Maybe prove
one earned run allowed. 1 earned run allowed by Emmanuel Clase all season. Crazy.
Oof. You're saying I should take Emmanuel Clase for MVP. All right. Okay. Someone from the bullpen. But yeah, the Guardians for sure have a great future. have the first overall pick in the draft coming up very soon. So you don't really see that in terms of a team first in the division and then getting of the first pick overall. So it should be good for them.
I guess the final cool aspect would be that they have Stephen Bowe here. That's their manager, first-year guy. So, I probably could have asked Skip. Maybe someone will in the next couple of days. Just, or at least ask Stephen Bowe. Just how can you relate to someone like Skip, former player? Now you're managing. You played in this league for a very long time. So it's a cool comparison, cool little matchup we're going to see here. So, yeah, it'll be a fun series. Marlins definitely have a shot. Just given the lack of pitching that Cleveland has.
I just wanted your help with this scene. I don't know if you saw it firsthand or whether it was just Krutchik about this kid. He looks to be between 7 and 10 years old that was helping with BP. How many people are usually in this fan experience batting practice group? Because there's only one kid today, apparently.
Yeah, so I think it should be clarified. This was right when it opened. These were the first people there. So it actually was pretty full today. Usually it gets filled up pretty well. I believe it's just invite only. You don't pay for this unless you're a Marlins member. You get the opportunity to do it every once in a while. But it was just him and the dad. It had just opened. Skip had just started doing rounders, and Skip called the kid over, and he started tossing balls over to Skip. It was a cool moment. First time I've ever seen him do that. So really, really cool experience, not just for the kid, but just, I guess it's a really nice look, and it's something I think Skip would probably do more often. So, yeah, definitely really a class act for Skip. Nice move there. But yeah, this fan experience is filled up today, almost all the way. It gets filled up with the Mets, gets filled up with a lot of the division rivals, and that's kind of why I mentioned Cleveland travels very well. Alex and I, Krutchik, took a trip around the concourse, and it was all Cleveland fans. There'll be their people here tonight, but I think it'll be a Cleveland majority fan base.
Wow. Okay. Well, it looks like Skip is helping out with the marketing to get Marlins fans, and you can come in early and maybe get on the field and help toss some balls to the infielders. But let's keep you here so we can do flip fish, and you could join us on that before you head out.
Yeah, this one is like moderate level of easiness right here. We'll see if you guys can figure it out. As always, we pick a guy that played for both the Marlins and their opposing team at the major league level. And it's, once again, a retired player right here who spent multiple seasons with both teams. He's a former pitcher, a lefty pitcher, 6'7", 8 WAR in his career. The overall numbers, but a lot more relieving than starting, though he did some of both. And big strikeout guy, as you see here, 979 Ks and just 829 innings. Just finished his career in 2021. So think it over during the break. We'll come back on the other side to talk more about this series and give you the rest of the show. Stick with us.
We have been representing people injured as a result of other people's negligence for over 50 years here in South Florida. If you get injured as a result of somebody else's negligence, it can be a car accident, it can be a slip and fall, medical malpractice, negligent security. If somebody else's negligence caused an injury to either you or one of your loved ones, give us a call. Our phone number is on our page, our website is on our page, and our email addresses are on our page. Please give us a call for a free consultation. We'd love to help you. Let Zach and I protect your rights.
I'll never forget seeing this pitcher in person for the first time and how tall he was at the old stadium. But I know who it is, but I'll let somebody else guess. So go ahead.
No clue.
If nobody else knows, I'll say it.
Really, Kevin?
You don't know.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I looked at the chat, and after looking at the thing, I think I know who it is, but I'll let Carver or Daniel answer.
It's got to be Andrew Miller.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sean Miller got it even before we went into the break pretty quickly right there. It surprised me looking it up how underwhelming his – I would not have guessed that his ERA was over 4 for his career just because of how dominant he was once he became a reliever for several different teams. He was good with the Yankees. He was unreal with the Guardians. I was also surprised that he only spent parts of 3 seasons with Cleveland because I thought it felt like a lot more than that, especially in 2017 when he was – I think most people's pick for the best reliever in baseball that year, especially during the playoffs when they made it deep into the ALCS. They made it to the World Series. No, in 2016 they went to the World Series with him, and then in 2017 he was even better. But yeah, he spent more years with the Marlins than he did with Cleveland. To my surprise.
Before I
When he
go,
went full time
Daniel,
relief, he
who's-
was insane. He was insane when he went full time relief. I think with the Red Sox, he went full time relief. He
Right.
was crazy when he went relief. But the Marlins clung on to him as a starter until they eventually parted with him. But man, he was really good. Not great as a starter, but really good as a relief.
Oh yeah.
Before I go, Daniel, who's the guy in the Marlins hat behind you?
The Marlins hat? What do you mean? Oh, yeah, you can make here.
Oh, that's Josh Bell. Holy crap!
Yeah, I got this off Google Images. I literally I saw Gene Segura. This is Josh Bell. Josh Bell did not look like that when he got traded to Miami. That is
No,
like
he did not.
prospect
Yeah,
Josh Bell. That is prospect
gotta be
Josh
like-
Bell.
that's got to be like the early Pittsburgh days.
Yeah, that's him, Starling Marte, right there. But I had to get it for that man, right? Who never actually wore that uniform. Who never even probably got on the plane to Cleveland.
No,
But-
he
Probably
didn't. I
not.
think it was the same day that they released him. Once
Yeah,
they made the
They released him like
Immediately.
minutes after that trade. Yeah.
Yeah.
Alrighty, guys. Have a good trade, boys.
Thank you, Kevin.
All right, good luck. As always, you could follow Kevin and Alex on Twitter for all your coverage for tonight's game against the Guardians. And with that, Eli, let's go ahead and look at the lineups for tonight. We're going to have Xavier Edwards leading off for his 2024 debut. We'll look a bit at the Marlins, and then we'll look at the red-filled Guardians lineup. And really, when you look at this lineup, it's any color. It's just a lot of green, a lot of almost just average numbers for the Marlins and guys who still haven't qualified to even get a potential color. Alex, when you're seeing this lineup, the last four guys, what brings you there? You know, Dane Myers, again, cutting up, down, we'll even get some of that. And then Bruhan, who Luke mentioned earlier in the chat, only 6 at-bats in his last 7 games. So what are you looking at the most in this Marlins lineup?
Yeah, so I say it a lot on those guys, but it's guys that have nothing. I said it again about Edwards, but I'll say it again here. It's about these guys too, that Myers, Bruhan, nothing left to prove in AAA. So it's either going to work with the Marlins or it's not. And then they're going to hopefully start to be that team. Not that you want to see guys get released, but they're hopefully going to start to be that team that says, okay, we know that this guy's not going to work out. So I think that the biggest surprise, which Kevin kind of just answered a little bit, they think that Xavier Edwards is a shortstop. I would have thought that we would have seen him and Bruhan flip around on the diamond, but apparently they want Edwards to be a shortstop, which is okay. Edwards has led off most of his time in Jacksonville this year. He led off a lot there last year as well. So he knows how to get on base. He knows how to hit from both sides of the plate, so he can do it against any pitcher. And then he's pretty fast on the bases as well. So offensively, I'm comfortable with that. But just the positional alignment there is interesting to me. And what we hear from Kevin that they think he's going to be a long-term shortstop is also interesting to me as well. But hopefully it works out. Emmanuel Rivera, that's a tough one for me. I don't really see a huge big league future for that player. Maybe somebody like Jonah Bride would be a better guy to go to right now at their base. That would be my suggestion. But again, I'm not a general manager, so I know that Rivera has good defense. But man, when you are not very good offensively and you see those bottom 3 at least in the lineup, and again with Myers struggling, like you said, it's kind of tough. So yeah, like you said, the kind of those last 4, man, when you have that kind of lack of offensive production in your lineup, it's kind of leads to where the record is for the Marlins right now. So maybe soon, like I said, they will start to make those tough decisions, which are hard decisions to make. They're not easy to say that, hey, this player didn't work and we didn't make the right call, but hopefully they can start to have kind of that more Rays-like mentality that we've seen from the Rays in multiple years past with Bendix and company. So that'll be my opinion overall. It's going to be interesting to see what they do the rest of the year in terms of roster construction, but
yeah, it looks a little worse tonight and the next couple nights just because Otto Lopez is not here, and by some standards he's the very best hitter on this team right now. You could debate. So when he's not available, this is for the best of reasons, because bringing his daughter into the world this weekend, that's fine. But yeah, in the meantime, just makes a weak lineup a little bit weaker in there. I do like the idea now that Edwards is back up and leading off, because he is a more prototypical leadoff guy than Dane was. Even if we think Dane is going to be successful, especially against lefties in the big leagues, Edwards is a better prototypical fit for that spot in the lineup. So that that makes that top 6 is fine. But yeah, then it really drops off the bottom third because Brujan has mostly come back down to earth over the last few weeks. He's barely been playing though. So on his side, I guess this is a silver lining of Lopez being out is that Brujan gets to start a couple games this weekend with both him and Tim Anderson being out. And I am 100% with Carver on Emmanuel Rivera. Like, I can't really explain why he's in the big leagues over Jonah Bride right now, where Bride has been one of the most dominant AAA hitters back-to-back years. He's even older than Rivera is. So it's like you're just wasting time to find out what he might have in that. With Rivera, the thing is, like, from the beginning, he's been consistently the same underwhelming guy. There hasn't been like a huge glaring slump at any point. He's just been this throughout this entire season to this point, like 2+ months. He's this weird prototype where he's a corner infielder, but he just doesn't slug whatsoever. He has not hit a home run going back to last year in like his last 70 games or so. That's just, you have to be exceptional defensively to even make that palatable. And he's fine at third base, but I think that's a pretty obvious trade-off that the Marlins should make for Bride's offense over Rivera, even if it means may DFA Rivera, you may lose him. I don't think that's going to be a pretty big loss. So hopefully, if Rivera doesn't perform, hopefully they come to their senses and make that pretty minor, but I think important swap soon.
Yeah, definitely some things might need to happen. Definitely for at least that bottom half of the Marlins lineup. And there, let's go a little bit into see what the Guardians have. First place in the NL Central, lots of red there. Jose Ramirez, maybe not the best so far starting off this season, but a lot of red and a lot of really great defensive players. Alex, for you, we have a Marlins prospect in Josh Naylor who has just been tearing up the baseball. They're starting Austin Hedges, who's not the greatest at all offensively, but definitely one of the best players defensively at the catcher position. And what do you see here with Cleveland in their really lineup?
Yeah, so like you said, I think the guy that sticks out is Josh Naylor. Like, the way that guy impacts the baseball is just amazing. Like, you would love that guy to still be on the Marlins these days, but fortunately he's not. He's with the Guardians, and he's doing very, very well for himself. Jose Ramirez speaks for itself. I mean, that guy's an all-star year in and year out. Really, really good. But man, like you said before, like, they get enough offense in terms of power. They keep the ball off the ground as much as possible, and then their bullpen just cleans up what their starters do, and that's kind of how they're coming by success. And they have a good defensive catcher as well with Hedges. So, yeah, I mean, this is solid, dude. This is a solid team. It's a team that year in and year out kind of does it on the lesser end of payroll, other than Ramirez, obviously, but it's kind of a team that does it kind of on the lesser end of payroll, which is kind of a team that you wish the Marlins could be. So I think this is a good model for the Marlins for the future. They just get a lot of value out of players that maybe other teams couldn't. Naylor's a perfect example of that. So I like this team. I like the Guardians. I think they're good. I think they need a little bit of help in starting pitching. Maybe they do that at the deadline and get even further into first place. But this is a fun team. It's a fun team to watch, and like I said, a possible model for the Marlins in the future.
Yeah, we have to touch on David Fry and what he's doing. The expected numbers kind of tell the story. He's actually, the overall performance has been breathtaking. It's a 1074 OPS. He has, I think by WRC plus, is higher than anybody else in the big leagues who's actually had as much playing time as him. So he hasn't been in the lineup every single day all year, so he's not a qualified hitter at this point, but he's on an insane run. There's a reason why he's hitting where he's hitting in that lineup. It really came out of nowhere, like in the middle of last year, to be important for them. And now this year has like fully broken out from obscurity right there. Just somebody that was profiled as a utility guy, run-of-the-mill utility guy who is now just an incredible run producer, at least in the small sample so far. Obviously, have to watch out for him right there. I think Kevin touched on it with Jose Ramirez, that he got off to a slow start this year, but he has looked exactly like Jose Ramirez over the last month or so. So those two in particular it's incredible to have them in the middle of your lineup right there, even though it is not a deep lineup. And it's fascinating that you have somebody like Austin Hedges in there and he's not batting ninth I would make sure to bury that guy as far as possible so he has a few plate appearances as possible. I don't think if it's a close game, that's somebody that they automatically pinch hit for every single time. They have a 3-catcher group that they have there, or maybe it's not so much. It's just that Austin Hedges just barely plays at all. Very lightly used reserve. So I think we'll be Bo Naylor for each of the next 2 games after this one. And just to look at the pitching side as well, the probable starters for these teams. Ryan Weathers' game, he had I think his last performance was that really weird one where he set a career high in strikeouts again, but he also gave up 4 earned in the process. So he's looking to, I don't know if you want to say bounce back from that, but look to obviously limit the runs allowed in that department. He's somebody that I think most people will agree is on an all-star trajectory. If this team needs to have one all-star, he is making a really compelling case. Has been clearly the most valuable pitcher in this Marlins rotation so far. And we haven't touched on it tomorrow. Tomorrow's going to be the return of Rodri Munoz to the big leagues for making his 4th start of the season for the Marlins. I don't know how many opportunities he'll get beyond that, but I'm eager to see it with him just because with Munoz, all of a sudden over the last month at AAA, the walks have disappeared. Like that was the reason why we kind of rolled our eyes when he got called up in the first place, because he was struggling to start the season in AAA. He wasn't showing any control at all. And then all of a sudden that has flipped around for him over the last few weeks right there. So I am intrigued to see exactly what that looks like.
I'm excited to see that too. We talked to Scott Kornberg from the Shrimp on the podcast, Eli, as you know, and he was saying that he really believes that his issues that he had at the start of the season in AAA started to get worked out the last time he was in the majors. So if he can continue to work on things as he gets his next promotion to the majors, which is now, that'll be really, really intriguing. But to see him come up and make improvements at the highest level of Major League or baseball, professional baseball, is super, super intriguing and super cool. He's been great in AAA, as you said. Even velocity is a little bit up too, ticked up a little bit too. So I'm intrigued by Munoz, and we're going to see what he does in the start. I'm really that's probably the game I'm most excited to watch in this series personally.
Yeah, well, with Rodri Munoz and his rise to the Marlins, how great he's been so far in these spot starts. Really see what he could do against the Guardians. And for the last game there, bringing out Cookie Carrasco, the Guardians. What do you think the Marlins would, or I believe Trevor is for that last game? Do you think Trevor's really he has to show up in this game? If not, maybe I don't want to say cut or maybe option or maybe what will happen to Trevor. But what does Trevor have to prove this game? What needs to show off for Trevor before we have to start thinking cutting bait with him?
In Jacksonville tonight, it's going to be Max Meyer starting again. So I think those things are interconnected. Skip was telling us, I haven't even plugged it yet, but we had Skip Schumacher on Fish Unfiltered yesterday. So I hope people enjoyed that and check it out if you haven't already. He spoke about Max being close to coming back, he thinks, but I think that is intertwined with both of how Munoz performs and how Trevor as well, because Trevor pretty obviously outside of this fifth spot, Trevor's spot is kind of dicey at best. He's been mostly bad this year. He's had a handful of good outings, but even so, like his stuff is just not what it used to be, whether it's the fastball velo or even his ability to get swings and misses on his changeup. He's in a different phase of his career right now, and he's still working through it. So I don't know. I feel like he'll have a slightly longer leash. I don't think his rotation spot is in imminent jeopardy right here, but it just depends on the readiness that Max has. I think if they feel that Max Meyer has made the adjustments he needed to make in AAA, then he just takes precedent over whatever Trevor is doing. So those two things are interconnected. That's why I'll be keeping my eye on how he does in AAA tonight as well.
I think it's similar projection, honestly, even though these are two separate and completely different pitchers. But both of them have relied historically this year for Trevor and historically forever for Meyer, have relied on their slider. With fastball velo down, as you said, Eli, Trevor has gone to that slider a lot, and it hasn't really looked great. But for Meyer, he also has relied heavily on that slider, and it has looked good. But with the lack of projection in his other stuff, most notably his changeup, that's kind of been what's held Meyer back from being, and there's injuries, of course, but that's kind of what's held Meyer back from being like that surefire rotational starter people mentioned bullpen. I think Isaac has mentioned bullpen a bunch of times for him. So I think it's reliability on slider for both of these guys to kind of go to your other pitches more often. I think it's very similar in different ways, if that makes sense, but a similar case for both pitchers right now. So we'll see what Max does tonight. We'll see what Trevor does tonight. And I think that they're interconnected, like you said, Eli. If Trevor struggles again tonight and Max does well, I think you're probably looking at a replacement pretty soon.
Yeah. And we can end things before heading in to prediction time. Really quickly touch upon the FanGraphs top 29 prospects they came out with just yesterday, days ago, detailing top 29 prospects for the Marlins currently. One big omission that we could get to, Alex, when you saw this top 29, what names really stood out to you? Your overall look, FanGraphs described as the top 29 guys in the system.
So I was really surprised. I told you guys this before to see Yohanfer Santana as high as he is on this list. It's a player that we have not seen a lot from at all. It's an almost 19-year-old player in the DSL, which is old for that level. So I'm intrigued to see him as high as number 5 on their list. I think that probably stood out to a lot of people who viewed this list. Wasn't really that surprised to see Jacob Berry left out. He was 21 on our list. He's off of their list, probably just off their list. I think they had said that it's just like not enough with the bat and with very little defensive flexibility or defensive projection, they left him off. So I wasn't really that surprised about that one. But yeah, just from what you're seeing on your screen, I think that the one that stands out most notably is that a 19-year-old in DSL is getting it ranked as high as he is, but apparently they see something. I love Longenhagen and FanGraphs. They're great, but I was really surprised to kind of see that, from them. So I was telling Eli before, they kind of have a different way of viewing prospects. They project prospects a lot differently than a lot of other outlets. So yeah, it's definitely interesting to see that. You see Carpio on here as well. Gennaro Miller, I think, is pretty high as well. They're really high on the longer term projectable guys, which is fine. Yeah. But when you're playing like I said with the guy that they have at 5th, and then a couple of these other guys, when you're playing over your average age, it's kind of like I don't know yet. I got to see more before I put a guy as high as 5th. So those are the surprises that I see. Overall, I think it's a good list. I love Kaner at 16. That's great. That guy kind of came out of nowhere, and to see him ranked pretty high is cool. I think that guy is really good stuff. Valor, I love. Maldonado, you guys know how I feel about him. Roderi's on here. Eknes is on here. So, I mean, I think it's a good list overall, but obviously they have a different way of ranking prospects and see the longer-term projection a little bit differently than some other people.
Yeah, and for you, Eli, with this other names for you, Emmanuel Ramirez being number 25, yet about to turn 30 years old. Brock Vandenberg at 29. Just lots of names there. Dylan Head mentioned at 3, just above Thomas White. What stands out to you? What changes would you make? And maybe are you skeptical about some of these lists?
Just echo what Carver said. It's a different exercise than what most other rankings are. I value the insight and the data that they have on this. Like they defended the Santana ranking about how projectable he is, how much he has already progressed from last year to this year physically and in terms of his pitch mix, even though it's not translating to results. They have his pitch mix and his fastball velo getting up to as high as 98 already, and why there's precedent for him to get even stronger. Like this great data, especially on the rookie level guys that we don't have, and we value that. But it is just a different exercise in here, and they're not perfect. It was only maybe it was 2 years ago that they had Yiddy Cape number 1 in the entire system right here. Now kind of taking the L on that a little bit. We hope he gets well soon, but dealing with an injury right now. But yeah, a whole bunch of these that we disagree on. The fact that they have Kemp Alderman in the middle and don't rank Troy Johnston at all. That's something that we very strongly disagree with. And it's a lot of difference. The Ryan Ignafo mentioned towards the bottom, I like that. I think that's pretty interesting. I know we've both been, Carver and I've been really impressed about how he's hitting since coming to the organization as a really low draft pick and now learning to catch. That adds some value. Yes, overall, a lot of disagreements, but ultimately it's a different exercise. And I value that they have some information on these guys that we don't have. And that's something that we can put into use moving forward.
Yeah, not to go too long, Daniel, but I think it's just more about, like I said, playing at or over in a lot of these situations, playing at or over age level. Like Ryan Ignafo has been great and he's learning how to catch and still being able to hit, but he's 24 playing at single A. So, it's kind of, it's kind of weird, you know. So that's all part of it, you know, is where you're at, how you're playing to your age level, or are you playing under your age level or over it, right? So that's kind of what I look at a lot when I see, okay, is this prospect actually performing, and is it projectable, or are they just hitting because they are playing against much younger competition or much less advanced competition? So I think for Ignafo, he's playing against a lot less advanced competition. Same thing in the case of Santana, who's 19, doesn't seem very old, but for the DSL, it kind of is. So that all goes into it. So that's kind of the things that I look at that kind of make me disagree with a lot of these. And like Eli said, Johnston not ranked, but Emmanuel Ramirez is ranked. That's a little weird to me. Whereas Emmanuel Ramirez is almost 30 years old and doesn't really have that much of a big league future. Yeah, Dax pretty high for me on this list as well, just based on, you know, what his trajectory is with his recovery. So it's all part of it. I think that, like Eli said, and I agree with him, that they kind of approach their list with a different thought process than a lot of other outlets, which is fine, and it's great stuff because they have information that maybe we don't have, and they're able to defend it. But even past that, it's kind of like, okay, but XYZ. So that's what I would say overall. Again, not a bad list. I appreciate them coming out with a continuous rankings list like this that we can kind of compare to.
Yeah, and I think with that, it's a perfect time to head into prediction. So Eli, let's get that video.
This is prediction time.
I don't want to like toot my own horn here, but I'm really good at this.
Daniel has been very good at this for most of the season. He has moved back into a tie for first place on top of our leaderboard right there. I was the idiot that had the Marlins sweeping the Rays, so that impeded my progress a little farther than I wanted to be originally. Without further ado, we do have a prediction time video that Kevin sent in along with Alex Krutchik and one special guest right here. I have not had a chance to listen to it ahead of time, but I hope the audio is all right. So here from Lone Depot Park.
Alrighty, Marlins at Guardians, 3-game set. I'm going to take the Guardians sweeping the Marlins with Jose Ramirez as my series MVP. Krutchik, you're up.
I'm going to take Guardians 2 out of 3, and I'm going to say Logan Allen as the series MVP.
We have a familiar face with us. Series MVP.
I'm back. Look, love you all. Fish on first live. Look, I'm going to take Guardians 2 out of 3. I'm thinking, man, it's tough. I'm going to go Josh Naylor, former Marlins system player. Look, it's going to be tough. Ryan Weathers might get one done tonight. We'll see.
All right, Eli, back to you.
Nice to see Grant Kiefer there in Miami for this series as well. And he's sticking around the next few days. So, yeah, all those guys enjoy the show as well. We thank everybody that submits their predictions ahead of time as super subs. A reminder, right before first pitch of every series opener, you can send those in if you are a super sub. fishonfirst.com/subscriptions to play along with us every single series. Well, let's fire up that music, and wherever you want to go with this one, Daniel, we'll make our picks.
Let's start with Mr. Alex Carver. Give us your prediction for this series.
I'm actually feeling pretty good about this series, so I'm going to disagree with my colleagues over there. I'm going to say that the Marlins will win this series 2 out of 3. I have confidence in Roderick Munoz to get it done second game, and I've loved what Weathers has done lately. So I'll go Marlins 2 out of 3, and we'll give it to Jake Berger. Jake Berger MVP.
All right, I'll go up next. Since my MVP is not in the lineup, I was going to go Stephen Kwan, not in the lineup. I'm Guardians take 2 out of 3, first in the AL Central. I think they get it done. You can't go wrong with Jose Ramirez. Tim Anderson not there, so maybe some more extra game to show him up in terms of getting on base. So I go Jose Ramirez MVP, 2 out of 3 Guardians. Eli.
It's a Marlins series win. I've gotten this wrong a few times in a row, but I'm feeling it now. The Guardians look very good team, a much better team than the Marlins, but due for a little bit of regression, especially with the starters that they're rolling out for this particular series. I like the Marlins' advantage in the majority of these games this weekend. So I think they'll pull out 2 out of 3 wins against one of the best teams in baseball to this point, surprising to many. I was going to go with Otto Lopez as series MVP before I figured out about his paternity list stint. So instead, Josh Bell haunting one of his several former teams and staying red hot as he was just in the previous series.
All right. That's going to do it for prediction time. As always, you can check us out on Fish on First. Twitter, you can check out Kevin and Alex Krutchik as they will be covering tonight's game. I'm Daniel Rodriguez, Eli Sussman, Alex Carver. This is FOF Live presented by Burger and Hicks. Go Fish.